Warning! This show contains material that some listeners may find troubling, including discussions of intense horror movie themes, explicit language, movie spoilers, and women speaking. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello, horror fans. I'm Charlie.
And I'm Eleanor.
And welcome to Horror Sandbox, the podcast where we dig in horror films and see what we can unearth.
That's right. Before we get started with today's movie, Charlie, how about you tell me how you are coping with the horrors?
So, what have I been working on? I have been working on a few cross stitches that I'm really excited about.
Very nice.
I have this one it's like a black and white dragon that is going to be, when it's all finished, have lace wings. And I've been working on it for like 6 months now. So I had to take a break from it, and I found this cute little cauldron that I'm doing now. So I'm finishing up my cauldron. I guess like I started this little cross-stitch Instagram that I found all these cool little like other designers on. So I've been buying way too many designs to stitch, and there's no time, but that's what I have been doing with my granny hobbies. How have you been coping?
Well, I just want to say, listeners, Charlie sent me a picture and she's not doing it justice. The dragon is incredible and it's not even done. And here's how I show you that I'm an idiot and I don't know how cross stitch works because I haven't done it since I was a child. Are you like, there's no pattern. Like, how are you?
So there's no pattern on the fabric that I'm using. But I buy them. I buy patterns offline and I just download them. And then it's just a lot of like counting and following it. And then I like use my mouse and like check mark every stitch that I do.
Oh my gosh.
Do it that way. So it is not an original design. I wish I was as talented, but it is a really cool pattern I found.
Something about taking like what you called a granny hobby and putting a literal dragon there. It's just so, I love it.
I love it too.
I can't wait to see it when it's finished.
Oh, thank you. I'll when it is done, I'll post it to the Instagram for everybody to see.
Very nice.
Yeah. But okay, well, thank you. How have you been coping with the horrors?
Well, you know, I like to thrift, and a couple of weeks ago I found these, you know, those little Christmas villages that light up?
Yeah, I do.
People get rid of them all the time, and they're always at Goodwill or whatever. And I found a couple of churches and I was like, I can make that better. So I repainted them, gave them, you know, the attention that my little goth heart knew that they needed, and kind of did like a upcycle thing. And I got, instead of like the white lights, I got purple lights. So the stained glass is being lit up from inside with purple lights. So I will send you a picture.
Okay. Oh, I really like the like cathedral looking one. And I know. Now that you say, the purple lights were the perfect choice because the way it comes through the windows, I love that.
You can just imagine like a little old witch in there just doing all kinds of sacrilege. And
yes,
I love it.
Witch and like old like living gargoyles in there for sure. I really like the black and the way the black and the gold pop too.
Yeah,
well,
and we can throw that on Insta, yeah.
Yeah. I love it. Well, look at us. You took your thrifting and made it goth, and I took my my cross stitching and did the same. So.
Yes, our grandmothers were never prepared for for what we were going to do with their crafts that they taught us.
No, not at all. But okay, I guess we should probably talk about what we're here to talk about. So, Eleanor, could you tell us which movie we're digging into today?
Absolutely. We're going to do Sinister 2012. This was directed by Scott Derrickson, also written by him, and along with C. Robert Cargill, and it's starring Ethan Hawke, Juliet Rylance, and James Ranson, which RIP to him, he passed away last year.
That's so sad.
I know.
I thought he was so cute in the movie.
He the nostalgia I get every time I see him.
Yeah.
I don't know. He's very endearing. I find his style very endearing.
I agree.
Okay, so this movie is about a controversial true crime writer who finds a box of Super 8 home movies in his new home, revealing that the murder case he is currently researching could be the work of an unknown serial killer whose legacy might date back all the way to the 60s. So before we get too much into it, do you have a Bloody Shovel Award to nominate this film for?
I do, and I'm very excited about this one. This horror movie is the best excuse for me to discuss my obsession with metal music. And we'll dig more into that as we talk about it. But there's so many ties to metal throughout this movie. It's very exciting. So
that is very cool.
Yeah.
That is very cool. Okay. Well, I nominate this film for the Bloody Shovel Award for Best Professor of Plot Advancement, which we'll get into a little bit later.
Okay. I'm excited to see.
Okay, so we open up this movie and we see a slow motion, kind of a lo-fi projector film. You see 4 people standing under a tree and they've all got nooses around their necks. And then you see that the rope kind of goes up over a tree limb and it's tied to a much thicker tree limb. And then as the more you watch it, you realize it's actively being severed by what looks like a floating saw on a pole. And then all of a sudden the limb gives way and it falls, which snatches the 4 figures up off their feet, and then they strangle until they stop moving. And I say it looks like it's a floating saw on a pole, but if you look really carefully, you can see like a little head of hair moving. So there's someone else up in the tree on the opposite side of the trunk from the camera, and it's sawing the limb to murder those people.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I'm watching this, and we can talk about it more later when the first time Ellison sees it. But I'm like, why is he not talking about the floating saw? So the fact that there is a person up there makes it make way more sense.
I always do it like, is this like magic? Like, are we doing, is it poltergeist? What's going on? I don't know.
Yes.
But no, I rewatched it. I was like, oh, okay. I see now. And that's actually kind of terrifying. When it doesn't look like there's anybody there and then you see it, you're like, oh.
That's true. It is super creepy. Yeah. I'll have to go back and pay attention.
Yeah. All right. So in the next scene, we meet our protagonist. This is Ellison Oswald, who is a semi-famous true crime writer moving into a new home while local cops look on disapprovingly. The wife, her name is Tracy, tells Ellison to behave because it's very clear that the cops don't appreciate authors who don't paint cops in 100% heroic light, which is evidently something that he did. So he goes and talks to the cops. It doesn't go great. One deputy, though, seems a lot less hostile, and we will see him a little more later. We learn that the writer is there to cover the story of the murder tree family, and also that from that family there is a daughter who was not killed there and is still missing. We also learned that he moved his family into the house with the murder tree, and he hasn't told his wife this. We watch Ellison... Yeah. Brilliant. We watch Ellison stare down the tree in question, which, bafflingly, still has the broken limb in place.
The first frustrating thing about this movie.
It's so frustrating.
Why is it still... For safety reasons alone.
You're like, okay, murder, I understand, but why did you leave the limb there?
Right? Like, at least cover it up. And then for the wife to just not even notice or question it, baffling.
Yeah. But yeah, I would absolutely be like, okay, this has to go.
Yeah.
So Ellison then goes up to the attic and he gets startled by what I would like to describe as a cat-sized black scorpion.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so red flag number 2 of this movie. I grew up in Pennsylvania, and I can promise you, never in my life have I seen a cat-sized black scorpion, nor ever worried about them in Pennsylvania. So I am pretty sure they are not indigenous to the area, and that should have raised a few more flags than it did for Ellison here.
I don't think those scorpions are indigenous to like Egypt. Like it is a comical looking creature, but I mean that would terrify me if I found it in my attic.
Right, but he doesn't like mention it to anyone.
No,
just smushes it and leaves it there.
No, he murders it pretty aggressively. And that's when he finds the box that contains the projector and a few Super 8 films. And they have some innocuous sounding names like Family Hanging Out, Barbecue, Pool Party, Sleepy Time, and Lawn Work. And they all have very different years. So later that night, we see the parents with their 2 kids. You've got Trevor, who's 11, and Ashley, who is 7. They're eating dinner. They've got their house, partially unpacked. Which, question, when you move, which being military, you and I have done lots, what is your unpacking dinner? Like, what's your dinner that you get the first day you move in?
Typically probably door dashing something, like some kind of takeout, maybe Chinese food. But
that's what I thought too. And they're actually eating Chinese, which I just felt that's relatable, okay.
It is good.
They didn't
detail.
They didn't bust out their best kitchenware and spend all day unpacking and then cook a 4-course meal or whatever.
And from a history of moving, the kitchen without a doubt takes the longest time to unpack. If you're not using paper plates, it's not real.
Right. So in this scene, they remind the kids to stay out of their dad's office, and the wife reminds Ellison to keep his office locked. Later, we see Tracy and Ellison in their room. Tracy's ready for bed, but Ellison wants to spend more time putting his office together. They have a conversation about work, and then Tracy kind of expresses hope that this will go well for him. And then she says, "When you're happy, we're happy," which seems like a giant red flag. And then she says that, and then she's like, "Also, if this goes badly, I'm taking the kids and leaving."
I don't know why I don't remember that comment, but red flag followed by red flag for sure.
Right, and I think because she speaks so gently, she's like, "Oh, I'm so supportive and wonderful. And then also, I'm going to take the children and leave you if this goes badly."
Right. Would have been a good moment for him to mention that they moved into not an active crime scene, but a crime scene.
Yes. Maybe a little more transparency from him would have avoided all of his problems, actually.
Yeah, literally.
So we watch Ellison set up his stereotypical true crime bulletin board. It's got crime scenes and literal red yarn, which I know it's a stereotype. I like it. I love it.
I do too. I mean, if there was ever an excuse for me to make one of those, it would be one of my favorite days.
I would help you, I think.
Yes.
So as he does this, he notices that a crime scene photo of the attic does not include the projector box. And because apparently this best-selling crime author is 4 years old and has no sense of object permanence, he draws a little box on a sticky note and then he sticks it on the photo. Good job.
That made me laugh too. Yeah.
He then sets up the projector using a sheet as a screen. And this is kind of like a little tiny thing, but every time you watch him watch these projector films, you can actually see the wrinkles from the sheet. And it's such a tiny detail, but I thought it was really neat.
It is neat. I wonder if, because I don't know about you, but watching those films isn't as disturbing as it should be. And I wonder if watching it in a movie on a sheet kind of helps that, I don't know, take the edge off.
I 100% think you're correct.
Yeah.
There's something about it. You're watching somebody else watch something, so you're even more pulled away from it.
Yeah.
That and the fact that this movie doesn't do a lot to endear the victims to us, if that makes sense.
True.
You don't watch their lives, their struggles, their hopes, their dreams, and then they get brutally murdered. You don't see that. And maybe, I don't know, maybe that speaks to a darkness inside me that I'm like, oh, I didn't know that person.
Too bad, too sad.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious. I think you're onto something though, because you don't, I mean, when you're not, tied to the people, there's those levels of separation. That's something. So
yeah, no, I get
that's
it.
Funny.
Maybe I'm not a monster after all. Thank you.
I don't think so.
So Ellison watches the first movie. It's called Family Hanging Out, and what do you know, it shows the hanging from the opening scene. So this is obviously upsetting.
Yes.
So I have a question for you.
Okay.
So you find a box of movies and you start watching one, and you watch somebody apparently get murdered. What is the very first thing that you do?
The very first thing. Actually, okay, so this is funny, but I do have a moment where I think proves that historically, the first thing I would do is call you.
Really?
Do you remember when I got that suspicious package delivered from the jail to my house?
My God, yes. That was,
And
in retrospect, very funny.
Yes. Oh my gosh, hilarious. Yeah. So, listeners, for those who don't know, one night I was home alone and I got a package. I was pregnant. I know I was pregnant, like 7 months pregnant. And I got a package delivered to my house, and this box looked like it had been beaten up and shipped and taped like up 6 times. And the only label on it was from the jail. It didn't say like to me or anything. I was like, what is this? So I freaked out and I called Eleanor and I think we had both agreed, and this kind of tied back to our like general military training with suspicious packages. So we were like,
Right.
I'll call the cops, like non-emergency line. And shockingly, they came out pretty quick. And then all they did was take this box out on the front step of my porch. So the only thing separating me from this box was a glass door. And the cop then proceeds to stab it with a knife. So I was like, oh my God, if that had a bomb in it, I'd be dead. But it wasn't. It was actually just some girl trying to send nudes to her significant other who lived down the street from me.
Which is explosive in another way, you know?
Yes, it is. But to tie us back to the point, I think my first point of action would be to call you. And then obviously my second would be to call the cops.
Yeah. Yeah. I like being your
What
first
about-
call. Like, I like
Well,
that.
I have to make sure I'm not truly insane before I act.
Well,
so.
you have to, tell me the details the whole time. I got to know what's going on.
That's true. That's so true.
That's so funny.
Yes, I love that memory. It's one of my favorites. But
Yeah.
what would you do out of curiosity?
I don't want to say call you because you already said that. But other than that, I think I would probably watch another one.
Really?
Yes, call back to you saying I'm not a monster. Maybe I changed your mind here. But I feel like I would want to make sure, like, is that all of these? Are they all like this? Is this an art project? Like a really
That's
grim
fair.
art project. But I think if it was like clearly different decades and shows what looks like murders, I think I would stop after maybe the second one. Or like halfway
Two
through the
murders,
second.
you need two.
I gotta, you've got to call me. I've got to double check.
That's fair. No, I kind of get it because, like, it's kind of the same thing. Like, I don't want to call the cops over something stupid. I think it's that part of us, like, well, I don't want to waste their time.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so let me make sure this is actually murder. And then once you get there.
Yeah.
Plus, yeah, I guess part of you would probably want to solve the crime yourself. But,
Oh, yeah. Well, our hero, Ellison,
yeah.
he doesn't call his bestie. He decides he needs to add a big old bottle of booze to this situation. Yeah. So he also starts taking notes that I can only describe as Blue's Clues level. He's got, I think it's a Sharpie, and he's like scrawling on this notepad, who made film? Where is Stephanie? Stephanie is the little girl who has gone missing.
Yes.
And then he goes outside to have another staring contest with the murder tree.
Right. Well, this was a scene where I was like, why aren't we writing, why is the saw floating? But now that you say there's a person up there, it makes more sense.
Yeah. So he goes back inside and he sees a spooky figure creeping in the dark, but it's just his daughter. He helps her back to bed. He admires the progress of her wall. She has been allowed to paint on it. She paints like little murals and he admires that. And then it's back to his office for more booze and snuff films. The next one is called Barbecue, and it shows a different family camping and fishing. The clothes in the car look like they're from the 70s. And then it cuts to nighttime, and we see the car inside what looks like a garage. And the whole thing is like wrapped in chains. And then the family that we saw earlier is bound and gagged inside the car. And you can also see like empty cans of gasoline or kerosene or something.
Yeah, this one is the one that disturbed me the most for some reason. I don't know if it's the chains or what, but did you notice a little bit of the creepy music in this
Yes.
scene?
Iconic Sinister music. I love it.
Yes. Okay, so I have some very fun facts about where that music came from. And
Ooh.
shocker, it's tied to metal. So, but we'll talk about it later because it's tied to some other things too. So.
Ooh, can't wait. This is also the first time that we see a demonic looking symbol painted on the hood of the car. Oh, and then from behind the point of view of the camera, a giant like fireball appears and hits the car, and we watch the family screaming, and the whole scene gets engulfed in flames, which I do agree. This is terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
So while he's watching this, Ellison hears something else moving around the house, and he thinks it's his daughter again, but it isn't this time. And he sees that one of the moving boxes is moving on its own. And then there's this really fantastic jump scare where a shirtless boy pops out and does this like contortioning back bridge out of the box while he's shrieking.
Yes.
And yeah, very, very creepy. And it turns out to be Trevor having a night terror, but it is a legitimately scary scene. All this noise has woken up Tracy, so the parents bring Trevor outside in the dark until he comes out of it and basically passes out. So, have you ever had a night terror?
So I think you and I have discussed that I have horrific nightmares almost every night, but I've never like woken up screaming or in a different place. So I wouldn't call them night terrors, just very vivid nightmares. Have you ever had one?
Yes, I have them rarely, and usually I just wake up crying and sobbing and not like it takes me a long time to realize that the dream isn't real.
Yeah.
But one time something very different happened, and it scared me. So you know the trope of people like sitting up straight in bed because they get startled.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And how a lot of people make fun of it because they're like, that never happens. Well, that happened. So I was home alone with I think one of my kids who was 3 or so at the time.
Yeah.
So it's just me and him, and I fall asleep, and in the middle of the night I woke up with a jolt because there's somebody pounding on my front door.
Ooh,
and
that's
I
terrifying.
can hear it's a cop. I can hear his radio. I can hear like 519 or rah, 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 rah.
Oh, wow.
And I can see red and blue lights reflecting off of like shining in my house. I don't know why, but and my son was crying, like sobbing, shrieking, crying.
Ooh, creepy.
It scared me. So I leapt out of my bed, and at the time I had a revolver. I grabbed my gun and I like creeped up on my own front door in the dark.
Jeez. Okay.
And it took me getting up, getting my gun, and being all the way at the front door before I realized a couple of things all at once. There was no cop. There was no one at my door. There was no radio. There were no lights. And my son was fast asleep.
That is horrifying.
Yes. So I did not keep a gun in the house after that. I was like, this happens to 10 people and 9 of them have a horrifying and like a real horrifying end to the story. I was like, this can't happen anymore. So
no, there was literally, now I think it might have been proven false, but there's literally like a crime where someone says he killed his like girlfriend in his sleep because of a night terror. So that's crazy. Yeah, we don't want to be shooting random people.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So I got rid of it, and it was very scary to come to that realization because I am standing in my own home with a gun in my hand, and everything that had led me to that moment didn't actually happen.
It didn't exist.
Yeah.
Ugh, so creepy.
Yep. And it was so real. It was so real.
That's crazy.
But where I was going with this is I don't think somebody yanking me outside while I'm experiencing that like they do to their kid, I don't think that would have helped. Like, let me drag you outside in the cold and the dark. Like,
or
first of all,
scarier.
I was armed, so that would have gone well for them anyway.
Right. But you're certainly not going to like come to and be like, oh, I'm just outside.
All better. Going back to sleep now.
Yeah. No, that would be, yeah, I get it. I don't know. I mean, maybe the cold air is just to wake him up, but it's certainly not. It's an interesting move.
Yeah. So. Yeah. So the next morning, they're doing that movie trope of a busy family having a full-blown breakfast around the table on a school day.
Yeah. No. So where the ordering food, like the move-in day was realistic, this is the opposite of that. I'm a stay-at-home mom, and we have like microwaved pancakes for breakfast, like the frozen kind.
Yeah.
In front of a TV. Nobody's making a full breakfast before school.
Yeah, and you're like chasing your daughter around the table with it, like, eat,
Yes, for like begging her, being like, I'll give you a toy today if you just eat one bite of your pancake.
So the family leaves for the day, and then Ellison goes back to his new fun hobby of watching snuff films. So he watches the one called Pool Party, and this shows a family having fun poolside during the day, only to be dragged to their drowning deaths later. As the camera follows the victims into the pool, we see our first shot of the monster, who is observing us from underwater. And the monster actually slowly turns and stares directly into the camera. What did you think of that?
I do like it. I like it because it reveals the monster, but it reveals him in a way that like you're not seeing him full face on. So it leaves a creepiness element to it and still like a mystery element, but you kind of have an idea that like, oh, there is something or an entity or a person behind this. But I also, you start to see some of his design here. And his design is one of my favorite monster designs just because of the reason they came up with it. But I want to talk about that more at the end or later.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Ellison also wanted to get a better look at the monster, so he stops the projector. But the film catches fire and burns away the image. So Ellison does a quick Google to figure out how to edit Super 8 films, and then he also sets up a digital camera to capture everything so he doesn't have that problem again. But the image he was trying to preserve of the monster underwater are basically destroyed. So in the next scene, we get a new scene and a new murder film, and this one is called Sleepy Time. We see a family tied to their beds, except for their chihuahua. The chihuahua is just barking his little head off and
as chihuahuas
sitting there.
do. Yes.
Yeah. And then we see this family tied to their beds while their throats are being slowly slit by the person filming them. Mm-hmm. And the movie does what I think is a kind of interesting thing with the child who dies here.
Yeah. Yeah, isn't it? Gosh, he like takes a swig of the booze, right? And you see it. Oh, it's in the background. So
yeah.
the shot is like focused on the booze. And then you can see that the kid's still on the screen in the background, but it's really, really blurry. And you just see like a little bit of red on his neck. So you know he's been killed, but it's not like egregious.
Right. You watch the other members of the family get murdered, but when it comes to the kid, you watch Ellison turn his head, and so the camera switches focus, and it's no longer looking at the projector film being played. It's focused on Ellison and his comically large bottle of booze. So
the way I used to drink booze in college.
God. So you can still see the film playing in the background, but it's out of focus, and you can see enough to see a red stain appear, and then that person stop moving. So you know what's happening, but it's not very gory, and you and I have talked about not being okay like with certain scenes that show a child in danger even. So I actually appreciated that.
I did too. And it's funny because that never bothered me in a movie. In fact, like the dog dying always bothered me more. And then I had a kid and I was like, oh no, like hard no.
It changes your brain.
Can't watch any of it. It really does. It really does. So yeah, I do appreciate not watching children being murdered in a movie. So yeah.
So he sees the symbol again. This time it's painted on a cabinet, and he prints a copy of it, like a copy of the image. He then Googles the murders, and he figures out that in this case, there was also a kid who was not murdered, but was never found and is still a missing person. So just like with Stephanie and the Murder Tree family, he hears something coming from the attic, and he goes to investigate, and he finds the lid that goes to the film, the film box, and there's a snake underneath. Did you notice the color of the snake?
Yeah, it was one of those like stripy ones, which I think it's like there's two of them, and one can be poisonous and one's not, but I don't know the difference. I never thought those snakes were in Pennsylvania.
Right, there's coral snakes and king snakes, and king snakes are apparently all over the place. You can find them anywhere. And those it's that rhyme. Red touches black, you're okay, Jack. But if red touches yellow, you're a dead fellow. Yeah, so the coral snake is the bad one.
Oh, okay. Which one's in the movie? Do you know which one it is in the movie?
I think
Let me put you on the spot.
I'm pretty sure it's a king snake, but it's a very fast. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a very
that
fast
would make
scene.
more sense. Because I remember being like, oh, I don't need to memorize that rhyme because the poisonous ones aren't here when I was growing up. So I don't know.
Yeah, true.
So, yeah.
Okay, so the snake kind of slithers off to go do snake things, I guess. And then he notices that the lid that he's holding has these like stick figure drawings on the inside of it. And it's depicting all the murders. But in each one, there's a spooky figure off to the side labeled Mr. Boogie.
Mr. Boogie.
Yep. And then as he moves through the attic, I think there's like, he thinks he sees something or there's a noise. So he like bolts across the attic. And then he suddenly falls through the ceiling onto the next floor and into the next scene. So we watch the paramedics patch him up, and then we see the local deputy from earlier, the one who didn't seem to hate him, who is taking his statement, and then he goes with him to the attic to see if there's evidence of an intruder. And then the deputy asks for a signed copy of Ellison's famous book, and then he follows him into the office where he's instantly fascinated by the crime writer setup. And this is where the deputy offers his help. He references authors who thank the tireless efforts of Deputy so-and-so in their hit books. Ellison agrees and asks him for crime scene info for some of the murders. And then the deputy leaves, and Ellison takes a break from murder movies to watch an old interview of himself for, like, no obvious reason. It's...
Well... Okay, so actually, I think it's funny that you say you think that one's not obvious, because I think actually that scene's important because it's him watching a video of himself saying that the reason he does this isn't for money or fame, like he did it for the purposes of like solving a crime and helping the family and all of this and that. But then that's very contradictory to what's actually happening in the film, where the whole reason he's dragging his family through this and the whole reason he's doing all of this is because he feels he's losing his notoriety. Like his other novels or whatever he published haven't been doing well. So I think it actually shows that his main fear in the movie is losing notoriety. It's not the snuff films, it's not the paranormal, it's not all this stuff going on. It's a selfish reflection of himself. And there's a little bit more with like vulnerability and stuff that when we talk about if this movie's sad or if it's scary, that I think I'll touch on it there. But yeah, I actually think that scene's kind of important. So
yeah, now that you say that, I can see it. And even watching him in the interview, even though it wasn't dawning on me that's what the point that the film was trying to make, it came across as very insincere. I'm doing it for the families. He hasn't talked about Stephanie really. He hasn't, he doesn't seem to be motivated by that. It's just getting famous and, doing it again and reliving his previous glory.
Right, which I think also ties back to like, okay, he didn't call the cops when he found the snuff films because he wants to be the superhero that figures it out. And if he calls the cops, then so it's all selfish. He's not actually trying to help anyone.
And now that you're saying this, I'm having another thought, which I wonder if the reason that some of those murder scenes don't connect with us on an emotional level is because he never connects with it on an emotional level. And we are watching him. So we're like experiencing this through his lens.
That's true.
So, yeah. Ooh,
that's
interesting.
a good point. Yeah, I like
just
that.
Occurred to me. So, okay, he goes back to looking through the films again. He kind of rewatches some of it. And this time he notices that he can see Mr. Boogie in the background. Yes. And then later, we watch him. He's staring at an image of Mr. Boogie on his laptop. So he's like kind of zoomed in and is looking at a close-up. And then Deputy so-and-so calls, and he says that prior to moving into that very house where Ellison now is, the Murder Tree family had lived in the house where the Sleepy Time family had been murdered. And then as Ellison is looking through his notes, he realizes that there might be connections to other houses. And then while he's kind of flipping through his notes, Mr. Boogie's image on the laptop turns and looks right into the camera.
Yes.
So, what do we think? Creepy? Funny? What do you think?
It did creep me out at first. Like when you first see it, it gives you a little bit of shiver. I will say this last watch through was my third time watching this movie. And I felt like it lasted just a little bit too long. So it peaked into the comical, but it was creepy. What did you think?
It's unsettling.
For sure.
It's very unsettling. I wanted it to be funny, but my gut reaction was, oh God.
Well, right. Yeah. Like the first time I watched it, and even the beginning of it this time, like I got a little chill. So like that same like reaction to it. So
Yeah.
certainly creepy, but
Yeah. He also, when he had been in the attic previously, when he fell through, he had, I guess, been filming with his camera to try to, I don't know what he was doing, but he had uploaded that on his laptop and he's reviewing that, and he notices that he can see little ghostly children's hands pulling him down.
Yeah, that's creepy too.
Yeah, and he does nothing with this information, which is very strange.
But, you know, it's true to his character to continue to do absolutely nothing.
Yep. All right, so later he wakes up from his bed in the middle of the night and he finds his office unlocked and the films are playing. So he looks around the room and then we get a jump scare. As he scans the room, he sees Mr. Boogie outside in the bushes. And then he does what every suburban dad does. He brings a bat and a flashlight outside. But in the bushes, it's not Mr. Boogie at all. It's Trevor, and he's having another night terror. So he brings him inside because I guess maybe the thing for night terrors is just bring him to the opposite place.
New place.
Yes. So he brings him inside, and then Tracy tries to calm him while Ellison goes outside to pick up his dropped bat. And that's when he finds a snarling Rottweiler. We get a kind of a jump scare. He's facing the dog, and then in the background you suddenly see 5 ghostly children appear behind him, and then they disappear, which causes the dog to lose interest and leave. So then Ellison goes back inside and has a fight with his wife about the work that he's doing negatively affecting the entire family. And then Ellison, to your point earlier, Ellison reveals he's basically in it for the money and can't quit because he's onto something that's probably going to make them rich and famous.
Yes. Something else about this scene, because we're on to jump scare 3 here, I think. And I just think it's really funny. I was reading some interviews with the director, and one of the questions was like, we noticed that this movie's more of a slow build without jump scares. How do you feel like? And the director says, oh yeah, I tried not to use jump scares. Like I wanted it to be more of a slow build reveal. And I'm like, oh no, there's definitely jump scares in this movie. So
there definitely are.
One of them. Yeah. So.
Maybe it's just that he didn't overuse jump scares.
Could be.
Yeah.
Which I appreciate because I hate jump scares. But I will say I read that interview before I watched this movie again. So I was like, oh, I don't need to like shield my eyes. Nothing scary is going to happen. and then the kid crawls out of the box. And I was like, okay, just kidding.
Maybe it's just a fake. Like the director did that interview on purpose as a fake out to get us really good. Like
false sense of security.
There you go. All right, so the next morning, Deputy So-and-so comes for a visit, and he has more crime scene details, and he tells Ellison that he wants to be brought in more. So Ellison shows him more of his research, and they discuss the possibility of a serial killer. Deputy So-and-so gets super freaked out by the symbol, and he says it looks occult. And then he gives Ellison info for a professor of the occult, which they treat this very seriously, but I kind of had to laugh because I think there are real life cases of cops reaching out to like quote unquote experts in the occult, and it's just some satanic panic grifter telling like scared parents that their daughter is wearing black eyeliner because something the devil.
Yes. I mean, there was certainly like some historic true crime where like the trails went wrong because of satanic panic and things like that. So yeah, you're not wrong.
Yeah. So later, we see him watch the lawn work film. We see kind of like the voyeuristic shots of a family filmed by somebody outside their home. And then there's a POV of somebody running a lawnmower. And this is basically the camera would be kind of on, it's a push mower. So the camera would kind of be on the handle of the mower. And it's kind of a long scene where you just see the mower on the grass and then boom, jump scare. The mower plows over the head of somebody who's like lying tied up in the grass.
Yes.
Which
I will say, it's funny because after we watched this movie, I was scrolling Reddit and there was like a Reddit post that was like, what's like one of the most disturbing or startling or jump scare scenes in a movie? And this one came up a few times, the lawnmower head scene. So it is disturbing without a doubt.
When I think about this movie, I think about that scene, which I think, yeah. So then we cut to a Skype call. This is with Professor My Bloody Shovel Award, the professor of plot advancement, because he knows all the background already and he's got some intel to share. So he's conveniently been caught up on the plot. He knows everything about the crimes as well as the occult symbol, which he says is from an ancient Babylonian deity called Bagul, who is an eater of children. And he says that Bagul lures children to his underworld, and that perhaps the murders are part of a ritualistic initiation rite and not the work of a serial killer. So when you watched this the first time, did you immediately think Molech?
So, I didn't immediately, because I was like, I didn't know who Molech was, but I was like, oh, this has to be tied to like some kind of already established like demon or, demon, or what's the word I'm looking for? God or deity of some kind. But yeah, I had to look up Molech, but there's definitely some ties there. Did you think Molech, or which like deity did you think?
Yeah,
Okay.
I was 100% thinking Molech, which, if you're not familiar, listeners, it's been personified as an actual demon from like ancient Bible times, where worshippers of the false god Molech would literally sacrifice their children to him, and the god of the Bible was like not cool with that. I think there's some scholarship around it now that basically says this is probably referring to a practice, and Molech may not have been an individual deity. It might have just been referring to the practice of sacrificing your children.
Right.
So I thought Molech, but then I also wondered if it's a little bit of a Pied Piper kind of a vibe.
I totally get the Pied Piper, especially when you get to the end of this and you see like it's leading the children away. I mean, not to spoil it, but we're going to spoil it. So leading them away into his films and stuff like that. So I absolutely get the Pied Piper. I will say, because I was like, ooh, what deity is this? That I did look into Molech a little bit more, and the symbolism of Molech in history sometimes looks like that of a bull sitting on a chair, which also ties to some other cool myths and legends. And I will say that in that same interview I read earlier, that the director says he wanted the Bagul to not be tied to any specific religion, so he just calls him a general pagan deity. And he's actually like a huge compilation of a bunch of different folk tales and things that he looked into. But I have more on the like origin of him that I'll talk to at the end. But there's your little like sneak peek. Yeah.
Very good. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So later, Ellis finds his office open and the films are playing again. And then we get a really nice jump scare of each of the missing children. It's clear he can't see them, but they kind of pop up and the camera lingers on them, and then they slow-mo kind of fade away. And I don't know about you, but I really like the scene. Thought that the way the camera lingered on each kid was very unsettling. And then you're kind of primed for a jump scare, but they're totally silent. The noise in the film is still just Ellison looking around his house. They're completely silent. And if you think about it, they've been silenced forever now, and they appear and they vanish like they're just out of reach, which I feel like ties into kind of him looking for answers that seem out of reach.
Oh, that's a cool way to look at it. I agree with you. I really liked this scene because it's just like the creepy little kids. And the more I watched it, because like you said, at first you're like ready for a jump scare. So I like looked away at first, and then I was like, oh, okay, no jump scare is coming. So I watched closer, and to me, the way the kids move around him, it almost feels like he's walking through a Super 8 film with them. Like the filming is happening like almost over top of him, and he can't see it. So that's the vibe I got from it. But I think both of our thoughts are really relevant in this situation based off the movie and its themes. So yeah.
Yeah, or we're doing extra work for the writers. I don't know.
Whatever, they can steal it if they want.
It's fine. Call us for the sequel.
Yes.
Or whatever.
There is a sequel.
Yeah, I know.
The next one.
Okay, so Ellison checks on his daughter because he's like, checking the house, everything. He checks in on his daughter and he leaves because it looks like she's sleeping peacefully. But the camera pans out and you can see she's actually staring wide-eyed in terror at the ghost girl Stephanie, who's from this house. And her wall mural now shows her Stephanie's dead family hanging from the tree, and there's an image of Bagul, which I thought this was very, very well done, very scary.
Yeah, super creepy. Like, I feel like every kid, I don't know about you, but like I used to sleep with my covers up towards my eyes because rolling over and seeing a little girl next to your bed, like number one fear for sure.
Yep. So meanwhile, Ellison has taken his dad bat for a tour around the house to check locks. And then
without a flashlight. Or no, without turning the lights on. He has a flashlight.
Well, you don't want to wake the ghost. I don't know. So then he falls asleep on the couch and he wakes up in the morning to call Deputy so-and-so. And then he asks the family who died in the house, or asks if the family who died in the house was reporting strange events in the days before it happened. And then he mentions that he never told his wife the truth about the house they're in. But that's okay, because she basically finds out right after this scene when her daughter paints a picture of the missing girl, and Ellison admits the truth, and then they have a huge fight. Which...
Right.
Yeah.
As they should.
Right. So later, Tracy finds her husband passed out in front of TV, and he's watching old interviews of himself, and then she kind of pities him and wakes him up, and they go to bed. And then the camera cuts to a point of view of somebody shining a light, or maybe a camera, on Ellison as he sleeps. Mm-hmm. He jolts awake and hears the sound of the projector starting, so he goes to check his office, but the projector is now missing. And then he sees that the attic hatch is open, and he pops his head up, and he finds himself eye level with the ghost kids who are all watching the film. They slowly turn to him, and they do a ghostly little shh, and then we see Bagul in the film. And while he's watching that, suddenly Bagul's actual head pops into view right in front of Ellison's face. And then he falls down the ladder, and somebody up there throws the projector, and the film's down behind him.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, this scene, of course, was one of these. I'm just do you ever do this? Like, do you hide behind a pillow or your hand when you know a jump scare is coming, or can you just handle it?
If I know it's going to be gory, because I can't deal with like super gory images. I can't. If I know it's going to be, I will literally, my son makes fun of me because in movie theaters, I'll put my hand in front of my face, like 6 inches out in front of my face, and like block half of the screen so I can still.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like one eye, like that's going to save us from.
Right.
Yeah, I do that too. Okay, so I had to do that here. So I didn't get as good of a visual, but I was listening, and our music comes back here.
Yes, it does. Which definitely kind of ramped up the spookiness. So Ellison takes the film and projector to their little fire pit in the yard, and he sets it all on fire. And then his wife comes out and is like, "What the heck are you doing?" And he screams at her that, "You're right about the house. We have to leave, and we have to leave right now." Which, can I say? Can I just say?
Yeah.
How typical.
Right.
She has been she's the whole time, "I'm uncomfortable. I don't like this." And then she finds out, and it's a big problem. It's been a week, but now it's your idea, so it's both an emergency and the time to be mean to your wife about it. Come on.
Right. Like, yeah, you're not going to listen until, it's too late. Like, that's typical man. Not to be stereotypical men, sorry.
I mean, they are. Yeah.
Yes.
Blame the writers. Like, take it up with the writers.
That's true.
So they quickly pack the kids up and they leave the house, and then they're pulled over by the grumpy sheriff from earlier. But when Ellison tells the sheriff that not only are they leaving town, he's also completely abandoned the book idea, both the sheriff and Tracy are just all too delighted. All right, so we get another moving scene, which they're apparently moving back into their literal mansion. Like, my gosh, the way the family was so annoyed with him for moving into that other house. At first I was like, it's not a bad house. Like, they don't know the creepiness about the house, but it's fine. It's a nice house. Not compared to the mansion they're from, because this place is huge. It's gorgeous. So yeah, I would be livid if I was forced to move into that other house.
I do think, doesn't he mention in the beginning how they can't afford it anymore though? But then they must not have sold it if they're moving back into it so quickly.
Yeah. I don't know.
I guess they just own 2 houses.
I think he's just a chain reaction of bad decisions, and he can't not make a bad decision.
I agree completely with that.
So he is back in his beautiful house, and he hops on a video call from the professor from earlier, Professor Jonas, who shows him images of ancient artwork that are depicting deity sacrifices. And there is some occult symbol in these images. And then, go ahead.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, did you notice at the very last one, I think it's the last one that he shows, there's a couple of them, but like the way that there's one where there's people with rocks tied to their feet. So it's like the same way as the family that got dragged to the bottom of the pool.
Oh,
and
no,
I think
didn't notice that.
Yeah, so I think if you look at all the art, it is actually like the same way the murders happened on the snuff films are depicted in this like ancient art. So I think that's kind of cool.
That is cool. The one thing I did notice is that I think the professor says at some point that this particular deity has been associated with imagery of scorpions, snakes, and dogs. And if you'll recall, Ellison had encounters with a scorpion,
All three,
and a snake, and a dog.
Yes, he did.
So thank you, Professor.
Yeah, I was going to say, I wanted to look into the symbology of that one, but like I was so more focused on the bowl stuff. So I haven't dug into the scorpion, dog, or snake much. But you're right. They do have reoccurring themes throughout the movie on that.
Yeah. So thank you, Professor Plot Advancement. And the professor also says that the images were considered gateways to Bagul's realm. So they were destroyed, which is why so few exist. So basically, even looking at imagery referring to this deity or his followers, that can lead you to his realm. So then this disturbs Ellison, who asks if it counts if the images have been burned. So like he's kind of like, oh, I watched these. I wonder what's going to happen to me. Hopefully nothing, because I burned them and that solves everything. Yeah. So go ahead.
Oh no, this is the part where the professor like starts to freak out, right? And he's like, what did you do? What did you do?
Yeah, he gets a sense something is not great.
Right, but for some reason the call just ends. And it's like, tell him what's going to happen. But yeah.
Yeah, so he decides to delete the digital files that he had. And then he goes to put some boxes away in his attic, only to find that same box of Super 8 films and the projector. This time with extended cuts featuring new endings. So Charlie, what would you do? Would you call me or would you get the fuck out of there?
I don't know. I think I would get out of there because clearly, like, at this point, whether it's supernatural or real, it's following me. I need to, one, come very clean to my significant other about what's happening, show them the box, and probably get out, I think would be my course of action.
Yes. But go to a well-lit Walmart or something.
Something, yes.
So at this point, Deputy So-and-so calls, and he is upset that Ellison has left town. But he also basically says, hey, if this is all real and there's a serial killer chasing people from house to house like this, then you are in the pathway of the murderer, and so is your family. So as the extended cuts play, we see that each of those missing kids are stepping out from behind the camera after they complete their murders. And then they all turn to the camera and say, shh. So at this point, Ellison picks up his coffee cup and he notices that there's like a weird substance in the bottom of it, and he has been drinking from it. And then he looks at a note that his daughter left him along with his coffee, and it says, "Good night, Daddy." And then he collapses.
Yeah, I do want to say it's really funny that the poison is like glowing. I don't know.
It was weird. It was a weird choice.
Yeah, for sure.
So we watch her approach him, and she says that she likes the endings. He comes to, and he and the rest of his family are lying on tarps. His daughter has a camera and an axe, and the walls are sprayed with blood. And then Bagul's symbol is painted on a wall. And then his daughter says, "Don't worry, Daddy. I'll make you famous again."
Yep. Yeah, so the whole point of the movie, his loss of fame, and he's getting it back, but he's not the way he wanted.
Nope. Ashley has drawn her murders on the lid of the film box, and then there's this really cool shot where Ashley is watching the kids inside the film that's playing, and they're all looking back at her as she tilts her head, and they tilt it with her like a mirror kind of a thing. And then as she tilts her head, Bagul is standing right behind her. So I thought that was a really cool reveal. And then he scoops her up and he brings her into the film as the other ghost kids run away. And then we see her film, House Painting, has been added to the projector box. And then we get one more jump scare of Bagul before the movie finally ends. So tell me all the things that you learned.
Okay, so there's some things I want to talk about before we decide if this is actually a horror movie or something sad or something else. So I like that it ends with a shot of Mr. Boogie or Bagul, whatever you want to call him, because I want to ask you, when you look at like the way that they designed him, what do you see? Like, does it look familiar to you in any way?
No, other than I feel like it's what kids think of when they think of a scary monster.
That's
or like
fair.
Or like a boogeyman.
Yeah, you're not far off. So it's funny because I actually really like the way he was created. What I see when I see him, and which is intended, is a good, like a death metal kind of like makeup setup. So if you like look at like Alice Cooper or like Kiss, or like it's got that like black like kind of makeup on him. So I thought that was funny, but that's all intentional. The director, his original concept was for Mr. Boogie was that he wanted him to be like a messed up Willy Wonka.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it is. But Scott Derrickson, he was the one who designed him, thought that might be like a little too cartoonish. So he literally went onto Flickr and just searched horror artwork. And he found like a handful of images that he liked. And then they just paid like some kid $500 for this image. And then they combined that image with the concept of like black metal, like makeup artist. And that's how Mr. Boogie came to be.
That's cool. And also I can't stop thinking about that kid or whoever painted or made that image. Like,
right.
I wonder what their other art looks like, and if they introduce themselves by like being like, oh, you know, perhaps you're more familiar with my more famous work of art. His name is Bagul. Perhaps you've heard of him.
Yes, I thought that too, and I wanted to find the original image, but I couldn't find it. Yeah, I wonder where that person is now, or if they're just still posting images to Flickr.
They're on DeviantArt.
Yeah. What I liked about that was the director said like he wanted to create a monster that it wasn't just grotesque, because if it's just grotesque, the audience is going to like turn away from it. But he also wanted it to be alluring. And he thinks metal music, I mean, I guess they're famous artists. So in a way it is alluring, just unsettling. So that's why he combined those two things. Yeah.
Okay, I could see that.
And then, yeah. The other thing that's really cool about metal in particular, and this is just more of a little fun fact than why this movie's scary or not, is that the music we hear throughout the movie is actually real music from like metal artists. It's just like the intros and the build-ups to the songs, and he distorts and uses them. So yeah, this movie is very metal, hence my Bloody Shovel award.
That is cool. I definitely wouldn't have thought this is metal, but now that you're saying that, I can see if he sampled something from like the intro or whatever. It's very creepy.
It is. I agree with that. Yeah, when I first listened to it, I wasn't like, oh, this is black metal, but you can almost hear the build up to the like breakdown, like if you going back and listening to it again. So yeah, I thought that was really cool. But yeah, okay, so that is the imagery of Mr. Boogie. Now I want to talk about what we talked about earlier, which is like what is Bagul. And I already mentioned this. He's just supposed to be like a general pagan deity. He didn't want him tied. He's purposely not a demon. Because demons are in specific religions. He wanted to keep it out of any religion that anyone was familiar with. And he said he like immediately went in and just started reading a bunch of folklore and demonology and tied it all together.
Okay.
Yeah. So we've already called out the ties to Molech and the Pied Piper. You gave a good history of him. But one other thing about Molech is that he's often portrayed like as a bull-headed idol with outstretched hands over like a fire. And if you look at the symbol that what's his name, Mr. Boogie leaves, you can kind of see like the bull horns.
Yes, you can.
Yeah. And the other thing I thought too, like the spikes on the side, like that could be the scorpion spikes, and like the face could be the dog. The snake, I don't know, maybe a little lost here, but it could be there somewhere, maybe in the arch or something. So
yeah,
I think it does all tie together in there. But another myth that I'm very partial to that involves a bull is the myth of the Minotaur. And I really want to talk about that.
Talk about
it's one
it.
of my favorite. Yes. Okay,
let's do it.
So I got the pleasure, and this was like one of the number one things on my bucket list of life, was to go to this place called the Palace of Knossos on the island of Crete. And it is, what it is it's ruins from the ancient Minoan Empire. And from Minoans happened even before the Greeks. So they're like one of the first like cultivated civilizations. And they built this huge palace on the island of Crete. And it wore away over time. And then the Greeks got there and they found it. And what it looked like to them was just this really weird maze type thing. So they called it a labyrinth. And the Greeks, they already had a myth about King Minos, who was the king of Crete in this myth. And I think he's in like the Odyssey or the Iliad or something like that. But his story is that his wife has an affair with a bull that he was supposed to sacrifice to Zeus, but he never did.
Oh,
and
Greeks.
From that, yes, I know. It really fits into, the Greek way.
Ancient Greek. Okay, we're
Ancient. Yeah. The myths.
Our Greek listeners should not get offended.
No, not at all. But so the result of that affair is that the wife births this like monster who becomes the Minotaur. It's a human, but with the head of a bull. And of course, King Minos is like, what am I going to do with this hideous thing? So he hides him in a labyrinth. And every 9 years, he sacrifices 7 boys and 7 girls to the Minotaur by sending him into the labyrinth to get eaten. So the Greeks actually, so the palace is real. The like ruins are real, created by the Minoan Empire. And then this myth is, well, it's a real myth. It's not actual factual events.
Right.
So the Greeks found this palace and they were like, oh, this is obviously King Minos' palace. And he hid the Minotaur in the center of this labyrinth. Like, this is where it all happened. And I got to go walk around it and it's so cool. And it ties back to the art, too, that we see in this movie. Because at the end, you know how he shows all the art and he shows some like really old frescoes.
Yes.
So this palace has, it doesn't have a lot that is still preserved or surviving, but the few things that are some like ancient frescoes of bulls and things like that, which is another reason why they tied the Minotaur myth to this palace. So yeah, and one of the artworks that we see that the professor shows us at the end of this movie is a fresco, just like that. So I think this is very tied to the Minotaur as well.
Okay.
The sacrificing of children, the pulling them into a labyrinth, I think it all fits. But yeah, so I think that's most of what I found. The other thing we talked about, not only, so if we could, you want to talk about like themes for a second?
Yeah.
So I talked about Mr. Boogie as like a villain. What do you think of Mr. Boogie as a whole? Do you think he's a good horror villain, a cheesy horror villain? What do you think about him?
I think he's a good villain, and I think he's very creepy. I think his method is very creepy and scary.
Yes.
And just the idea that like your kid's mind could be taken from you before they fall, you know what I mean? Like, that's terrifying.
Yes. Okay, I love that you said that, because I wanted to talk about the themes of the movie. So I think we've already really dug into the fame and notoriety. But the other theme that I saw was vulnerability. And you just hit the nail on the head by saying he takes over the minds of the children. So Bagul feeds on these families and makes fame by using the most vulnerable individual in the household to do his dirty work, right?
Right.
And in my mind, Ellison and Bagul they're like mirrors of each other almost in a way.
What?
Because he feeds on the vulnerabilities of families who were murdered. So he takes these families' demise and their worst moments and their most vulnerable moments, and he uses those for his own personal fame in the same way that Bagul uses the vulnerabilities of the house for his fame.
You're so right. Wow.
Yes.
He's the monster. Ellison was the monster the whole time.
Monster all along. Exactly.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So when you tie those two things together, they both Bagul and Ellison want fame and notoriety because all of Bagul's crimes his whole thing is to preserve it in some way, in some art form, whether it's film or fresco or painting. And then Ellison does it with a book. But besides that, they're the same. So, yeah.
That's really interesting. The other thing that this made me think of is that whole, like, if you look into the void, be careful because the void is looking back at you.
Yes.
And I feel like the more Ellison was watching Bagul and his, murders and his work, the more he was getting sucked into it, and Bagul could see him. He was giving the deity an opening into his home and his life because he couldn't look away.
Yes, exactly.
So every time you see Bagul looking back at the camera, it's staring into Ellison and sucking him in.
Right. Yep.
But you're right. If he wasn't so egotistical and whatever, maybe he wouldn't have fallen for it.
Exactly. Yeah, and he would have, because he isolated himself and became part of the film. So, yeah.
You never want to be part of the true crime book you're writing.
No, you don't, but he did.
Yeah.
So
okay. So let's give it our official vote. So what do you think? Is this a horror movie? Is it a sad movie? Like, what is it?
So I will say, even with everything I said about the themes and the vulnerabilities, which do give it a little bit of sadness, especially when there's kids involved, I think at its core, to me, it is still a horror movie. It's got all the tropes. It's got the jump scares. It's got the murder. It's truly just a horror movie, and a scary one, but certainly not the most scary. That's my take on it. And, just a touch funny, but I don't even know that it's purposely being funny. So I'm going to vote horror.
Yeah. I think that, like, there's a humorous scene where we didn't really talk about it, but when Deputy so-and-so comes over and is looking at the attic to see if there was an intruder, there's like this whole back and forth about you might have squirrels, and he's like, no, there was a snake up there, and he's like, well, you wouldn't hear a snake. It's got to be squirrels. Yeah. Squirrels have feet, and like the deputy can't let go of the fact that squirrels have feet, and so obviously he's got squirrels, which would explain the noise. That was funny, but I agree, this is not a funny movie. I don't think it's sad because I think we're not supposed to feel sad because we're seeing it through his lens and he's not engaging with the tragic parts of this. I think it's a horror movie. This is definitely a horror movie.
Yeah, I agree with you. This one's pretty cut and dry. Standard horror.
We'll have to do something more controversial in the future.
We will.
Yeah.
Yes. But there was still some cool stuff to explore here, so yeah.
Absolutely.
But okay, I think that's all for today, right? Do you have anything else before we sign off?
No, I think we're done digging around.
All right, perfect. Well, listeners, thanks for joining us, and may the horrors persist.
But maybe stop after the first snuff film. Thanks for listening to Horror Sandbox. For show notes, credits, and contact information, check out our website at www.horrorsandbox.com. You can also follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Horror Sandbox. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this podcast with all the horror fans in your life.
What's that?